tasyachalam shraddham tam eva vidadhami aham. Yo yo yang yang tanum bhaktah shraddhaya chitmichhati tasya tasyachalam shraddham tameva vidadhamyaham. Yo yo yang yang tanum bhaktah shraddhaya chitmichhati tasya tasyachalam shraddha. Yo yo yang yang tanum bhaktah tasya tasyachalam shraddhaya chitmichhati tasya tasyachalam shraddham tameva vidadhamyaham. Please repeat. Yo yo yang yang tanum bhakta. Yo yo yam yam tanum bhakta. Shraddhaya chitamichhati. Tasya tasya chalam shraddham. Tasya tasya chalam shraddham. Tameva vidadhamyaham. Yo yo yam yam tanum bhakta. Shraddhayam vichati tasya tasya chalam shraddham tameva vidadhamyaham. Yo yo yam yam tanu bhakta shraddhaya chitamichhati tasya tasya chalam shraddham tameva vidadhamyaham. Okay, anyone else from the mothers? Do you want to try? Anybody want to try? Okay. Yo, yaha, whoever, yam, whichever, tanum, form of a demigod, bhakta, devotee, shraddhaya, with faith, architum, to worship, ichchati, desires, tasya, to him, achalam, steady, shraddham, faith, tam, that, eva, surely, dadhami, aham, give, aham, I. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. I am in everyone's heart as the super soul. As soon as one desires to worship some demigod, I make his faith steady, so that he can devote himself to that particular deity. Purport. God has given independence to everyone. Therefore, if a person desires to have material enjoyment and wants very sincerely to have such facilities from the material demigods, the Supreme Lord, as Super Soul is in everyone's heart, understands and gives facility to such persons. As the Supreme Father of all living entities, He does not interfere with their independence, but gives facilities so that they can fulfill their material desires. So some may ask, why the all-powerful God gives facilities to the living entities for enjoying this material world, and so lets them fall into the trap of illusory energy? The answer is that if the Supreme Lord as Super Soul does not give such facilities, then there is no meaning to independence. Therefore, He gives everyone full independence, whatever one likes. But His ultimate instruction we find in the Bhagavad Gita, one should give up all other engagements and fully surrender to Him. That will make man happy. Both the living entities and the demigods are subordinate to the will of the Supreme Personality Godhead. Therefore, the living entity cannot worship the demigod by his own desire, nor can the demigod bestow any benediction without the Supreme will. As it is said, not a blade of grass moves without the will of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Generally, persons who are distressed in the material world go to the demigods as they are advised in the Vedic literatures. A person wanting some particular thing may worship such and such a demigod. For example, a diseased person is recommended to worship the sun god. A person wanting education may worship the goddess of learning, Saraswati. And a person wanting a beautiful wife may worship the goddess Uma, the wife of Lord Shiva. In this way, there are recommendations in the Shastras, Vedic scriptures, for different modes of worship of different demigods. And because a particular living entity wants to enjoy a particular material facility, the Lord inspires him with a strong desire to achieve that benediction from that particular demigod. And so he successfully receives the benediction. The particular mode of devotional attitude of the living entity towards a particular type of demigod is also arranged by the Supreme Lord. The demigod cannot infuse the living entity with such an affinity, but because he is the Supreme Lord, or the Supersoul who is present in the hearts of all living entities. Krishna gives impetus to man to worship certain demigods. The demigods are actually different parts of the universal body of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, they have no independence. In the Vedic literatures, it is stated the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Supersoul is also present within the heart of the demigod. Therefore, he arranges through the demigod to fulfill the desires of living entity. But both the demigod and the living entity are dependent on the Supreme Will. They are not independent. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanam Janachalakaya Chakshurunmitamena Tasmai Shigrive Namah Shri Chaitanya Mano Vishtam Stapitamena Bhutale Swayam Rupakadamayam Tatati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shivatapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragnathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savaditam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Leta Shri Vishakhan Vitam Shahe Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavane Shri Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriya Vanchakalpatarubhya Kripa Sindhubhya Puchapatita Nam Pavinebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtavutale Srimate Bhakti Vikasa Swami Nitanamane Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtavutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitanamane Namaste Saraswate Devi Gauravani Prasharne Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashatya Deshitarane Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivas Adi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jnananandamayam Devam Nirmal Sphaticakriti Madharam Sarva Vidyanam Hayagrivam Upasmahe Guru Vaishnava Bhagavan Tinir Smarana Hoy Vigna Vinashan Anayasha Hay Nijavanchita Purana. Okay. So continuing on here, Krishna is speaking after he speaks about those who come to him. He's speaking on the platform of those who come with some material desire to try to advance in some material way, how they worship the demigods. Now, Krishna makes a specific point before speaking in this verse, before that such persons are hritagana. This means there's those who are bereft of knowledge. Those who do not have proper knowledge or their intelligence is stolen by material desire, they cannot see. So what do? They surrender unto the demigods and follow the rules and regulations under their particular, according to their own natures. So when one's intelligence is bewildered, when one cannot see properly, then his mode of worship or his object of worship is false. It is impelled by material desires, just like we were speaking last week about how when one is covered, comes vairinam, etarhi vairinam, that one's eternal enemy, this lust covers us, and one cannot see properly, then he enters into a very dark region in which his choices that he makes are not very intellectual, as we were relating last week. Someone who, under the influence of particular drugs, you can't make good decisions. It's not that the President of the United States, that if he was on drugs all the time, if he was taking cocaine, it wouldn't be a particularly good position for him, right? We wouldn't particularly trust him. Why? Because he's impelled by this material desire to try to enjoy in that particular way. And that enjoyment is causing him bewilderment of his intelligence, so certainly you cannot trust him. Certainly the decisions he makes or the position he takes, you cannot trust him, or any person. Even if you're getting in a Uber ride, does that happen? Uber drivers get drunk and drive? Yeah, that happens a lot. I'm sure that goes on. But one doesn't want to be in the driver's seat or in the passenger seat of someone who is under the influence of some sort of drug or some whatever, alcohol or whatever it may be, right? Nobody wants to be in that situation. Or maybe you have been in that situation, or you yourself have done that. Just like in the Bhagavad Gita, we see there's this nice little, is it here or is it in the other one? Okay. Just like here, you see the horses and the reins and the person trying to control the horses, and then there's a person out in the back freaked out. So the Bhagavad Gita gives us this understanding how the horses are like the different senses, and the reins of the mind, the person trying to control it is the intelligence. Now, if the horses are drunk out of their mind, it's not really a good idea to go charioteering, because the senses are uncontrolled, and therefore the intelligence is also controlled by the senses. You're pulled by the senses, because the horses are not trained properly. So, similarly, the living entity who is on the chariot of this material body, if it is impelled by material desire to try to enjoy in this world, and that's the motto of life, hedonistic society, enjoy. As long as you can have enjoyment in life, nothing else matters. You are the center of everything. Your life is the center of everything. Such hedonistic society, everybody is miserable. Everybody's miserable. Who's happy? Everybody's running after material desire, but nobody is happy. Why? Because the idea of selfishness, it's a selfish society. They're covered by material desire. They can't even see that actually my own selfishness is bringing me so much pain. So when one's intelligence is covered by material desire, he does not know, like I was saying last week, what is to be done and what is not to be done. So Krishna particularly says here, those who have material desire, they worship the demigods. Why? Because that's all you care about. Just like in this world, like we were saying last week, those who are running after name, fame, position, and adoration, they don't really care who they step on and who they backstab, and they don't really care as long as I get to that position. Especially if it involves a lot of money. If there's a lot of money involved, then you don't care. You're ready to do anything and everything for it, because that intense material desire carries us. So similarly here, Srila Prabhupada is relating that the living entity bewildered by the false understanding that I am this body and I need to enjoy in this body. This body is a vehicle for my enjoyment. That may lead one to worshipping a particular demigod, because by worshipping a demigod, you can get any result that you like. Just like it's mentioned here, if you want a very beautiful wife, who most people want, you can worship the consort of Lord Shiva, Uma. Or if you want a very healthy body, which everybody wants also, you can worship the sun god. Or you can go on and also worship the goddess of Saraswati. She is Saraswati, the goddess of learning. We would do this often when we were kids. We would worship Saraswati because you go to school and then you want help with your knowledge. So you worship that particular god. And by your worship, they are satisfied, if you know how to do it properly. And then they grant you the material knowledge. But what is the result of that? The result is not that we become happy, but the result is that our material desire increases, just like Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, that the nature of lust is that it burns like fire. Nature of material desire is that it burns like fire. It consumes one. So when we try to satisfy material desire, we may approach a demigod, and that particular benediction may be given, just like, you may approach whoever you may know in your family to be very rich, to get a new car or whatever material desire you may have. You may have a person that can fulfill that desire. But it's not that by fulfilling that desire, you became happy. It's not that you got free from desire. Just like we expect that. We expect that. When we buy new things, we expect that thing is going to satisfy me and I won't have to buy anything more. Right? Now I buy the new car, and that should satisfy me. It feels like that before you buy it. Or once I buy that next thing, once I, do this particular thing in my life, once I finish school, once I build this company, once I do this, whatever engagement you may be in, once I finish this, my life then will be good, right? That's what we run on in life. Hope, right? The hope that once I get here, my life will be set, right? Especially when we're 18, 19, waiting to finish school, you're like thinking in your mind, well, once I finish school, then life will be great, right? Yeah, everybody's thinking like that. Once I finish school, then I'll be able to have money, I won't be tied down. But what happens? You work a job and you're tied down more than ever. Everybody has that experience in this material world. We think that once we become older, we'll be freer, especially that teenage years. It's like I can't wait to have money and a car and do all of these things. But we don't realize all of the baggage that comes with that. We think that's freedom, right? We think that by getting our material desires fulfilled, we'll become free. And we've had experience of that again and again and again and again. But for some reason, hrita jnana, stolen by illusion. We think, even though those desires that we've tried to fulfill don't satisfy us, we think the next material desire will. And that's what we're told. We're told like that. Oh, you just did it slightly wrong. You have to do it slightly right next time. You went to the beach, but the weather was just a little too hot. The water was just a little too cold. The people around me was just not good enough. But if you get all of these conditions right, then you can become happy. And that's the illusion that we're sold, and that's the illusion we accept. Even though by experience in this material world, we can see more or less we have to learn to be content, right? It's not that we become happy. We just have to be learned to contempt. Okay, I have this. Okay, let me at least appreciate it. And that's how I have to go on in life. It's not that, whoa, I'm actually really happy. Like, whoa, it's like, this is amazing. But it's like, okay, I have to just appreciate. I have to appreciate everything that I have. That's the whole new thing. Love everything, appreciate everything. So that we can remain in our illusion. Just appreciate it, that's all. But actually we're lacking. We're lacking in knowledge, we're lacking in happiness, we're lacking in all these things, and we should recognize it. That's why depression is at its, peak, is going to continue to peak. Why? Because people are realizing, hang on a sec, this is not making me happy. Hang on a sec, playing this video game is not making me happy. Hang on a sec, watching this movie is not making me happy. But let me just keep watching and just keep covering it up. Maybe the next thing will definitely. And then we get a little rush, a little bit of laughter, a little bit of rush from the game, a little bit of rush from going parachute, whatever it may be. We get that little thing and we think, oh, there it is. See, I got it for a little bit. Now I just have to extend that a little bit longer. I just have to figure out how to extend that a little longer. It's like chewing gum. The more you chew, the nastier it gets. It loses the flavor. And if you just keep trying, you say, okay, I can get a little more juice. It's there still. I just have to keep chewing and the juice will come out. But actually we know we have to throw that out. We have to spit that out eventually. We know it becomes a little nasty. And so people's lives are like that. We're living like that. We're living in this hedonistic society trying to enjoy this thing, okay, that thing, now that thing. But it's not satisfying us. So then we become depressed. We don't know what to do. We have anxiety. We have all of these problems because of the hedonistic society. The nature of material enjoyment is like that. It frustrates us. Krishna is saying that in the Bhagavad Gita. So the more we get, the more we want. That's the nature of greed. So this greed and lust, it impels us in the mode of passion. We're pushing to get more and get more. Okay, more. More is better. Newer is better. That is the motto of the society. Newer, better, bigger, the better. But actually, if you look around yourself in this society, we'll find actually it's getting worse and worse and worse. Externally, it looks good. Okay, cool. We've got the latest, electric car that can run 600 kilometers or miles without a charge. Great, wonderful. But what does that do for you as a person, who you are? Okay, I can drive so far, and you're excited about that. But what about you? Who am I? What is the purpose of my life? These things are not being addressed. But let's cover it up a little more. Okay, next one. 700 miles. We can go 700 miles without a charge? Wow, how life must be so good with 700 miles in our vehicle. Right? It's like that. It's like, the new iPhone, the latest one, has, what is it, the intelligent Siri. That's their whole pitch. And has a better camera. Oh, wow, how much, I mean, like, you're not even a photographer most of the time. You have an iPhone. Does it really matter? But to us, it's like, wow, it would be so much better to have it. It doesn't really make a difference. But our intelligence is bewildered. We don't know what else to do. So those who are within the Vedic system are also the same. Those who worship demigods. Their material desires consume them to an extent, well, I don't really care about the ultimate goal of life. Let me just worship in order to fulfill my material desires. And that requires a level of faith. Just like even in general life, it requires faith. You have faith that by getting the new iPhone or the new Yeezys, I don't think Yeezy is produced anymore, right? It's still going on? Oh, okay. Is that still, anybody know? Is Yeezy still going on? Nobody knows? Oh, yeah, okay, he's giving the thumbs up. Okay, yeah. It's still going on. The new Yeezys or whatever, Kanye West puts out a white shirt, new one, whatever it may be. It's not that satisfies us. So similarly, these people, they're run towards, they're chasing after the demigods and getting these material benedictions. It doesn't particularly satisfy them, but bewilders them more. So I was saying that we get faith. We have some faith that maybe this thing will satisfy me. We have faith when you go to school that they're going to give me proper knowledge. You have faith that when you're drinking that water that's bottled up, that nobody's poisoned it. Otherwise, you can doubt everything, right? Everything you do, that the next step I'm going to take, it's actually hollow there, and I'm going to fall through the whole building, and land in a coffin and die. I have faith that, that I'm going to wake up tomorrow. Do I know? Is it full knowledge? Is it full guarantee? No. But there's some idea, okay, when I drive, there's some level of faith that this car is not going to break down on me, right? So the living entities more or less subsist on faith. Our whole life is built on faith. Actually, without faith, you can't do anything. Everybody, the scientists and the atheists, they say, well, everything is based on, your whole knowledge is just based on faith. Actually, everybody's life is based on faith. Everybody, you have to have faith. Anything you do. You have faith that when you go to school, you get a job. You have faith that when you get a job, you get money, that this person will pay you. He hasn't paid you yet. Maybe some cases, they may pay you straight up. But you have faith that I work, now I'll get money in my bank account. So the living entities, more or less, they subsist on faith. And so their faith is according to the particular mode of nature we're in, to the conditioning that we have, to the level of conditioning that we have. And where do we get this faith? Krishna says that faith comes from me. That there's super soul within the heart. There's the soul who is the individual person, and there's a super soul within the heart who is giving us jnanam apohanam cha. Matir smritir jnanam apohanam cha. That he's giving us knowledge and forgetfulness. Just like, what is this? By scientific understanding, this eureka moment is not possible actually. A lot of great philosophers and scientists in the past, you're focusing on work intensely and you can't get anything done. But they're just chilling, they're doing their whatever, taking a shower or cooking or something, and all of a sudden, everything just comes and you've just solved the equation to the black hole or something like that. While you're cooking, you're not even trying to think about it. Where does this come from? How does this happen? There was a great mathematician called Ramanuja, there's another Ramanuja who's very famous of Sri Sampradaya, but this is a Ramanuja who is a mathematician, and he was born in a poor background in some village in India, South India, and he was worshipping this particular demigod who is another form of Uma, some form of Durga. And from her, he would derive just level of knowledge that the Westerners could not even imagine. He was coming up with equations that people would have to study years and years and years and would not even get close to. He learned calculus when he was like a couple of years old. If anybody knows what you know what calculus is, right? Yeah. So he learned calculus when he was a few years old, and he started studying. He started being able to do intense level of high levels of maths. When you study maths, you understand what he did. It's quite amazing. He was able to come up with equations to very sophisticated, problems that you couldn't even imagine. You couldn't even imagine that somebody could just like write it down and be within a certain error. In maths, when you come up with a theory or some level of equation or something to solve something, you have to be within a certain amount of error. So somehow they came across him because his work got sent over to England, and they invited him to go. And so he went to England, and they started telling him, okay, you attend all these classes, and he couldn't. He couldn't attend their classes because it was all systematic. And for him, he was just deriving knowledge straight from this demigods. He would just get that. His intelligence will just get all of this knowledge, and he would just write it down. He wouldn't have to do, in maths, if anybody's done maths before, when you get to a higher level, it doesn't become so much about numbers more than variables. Everyone knows what a variable is? Remember the x, y, and z? I don't know. Remember that? X equals 2x. Nobody remembers that? Or 1 equals 2x in school. Algebra? Everybody remember algebra? Okay. So it's algebra, but at a whole different level. So, generally you stop working with numbers so much, but start working with concepts. And so in order to prove that concept, you have to go through various logical steps in order to prove that thing. He couldn't do that because he didn't study in the system. And they were doubting him. It's like, what kind of thing are you? What kind of mathematician are you? You have to show proof and all of this. And they wouldn't just let him go. The professor would be saying, in the lecture, he would be saying, well, we don't have a proof for this yet. So, whoever figures it out gets a certain amount of money and all of this. And he would just be at the back of the lecture and just tell the lecturer, oh, yep, this is the proof right here. Well, this is the equation is this. You're missing this. You're missing that. And this person hasn't studied maths in his life. And then they got him to solve this particular equation. He said, okay, you come up with this equation, but it has to fit within this percentage. And they challenged him, like a whole group of mathematicians, very high-level mathematicians at the time, challenged him. And he would just sit in his office and he would just write his equation out and be done. Whereas these mathematicians are having to think so hard, trying to use their own intelligence. And now that whatever that equation was at the time is being used to study black holes. They were just so far behind, like 100 years ago. So I'm just giving an example. By worshipping a demigod, one can get a great level of intelligence. One can get a great level of opulence. But what is the benefit? The benefit begins with this body and ends with this body. It has no benefit, actually. It's temporary. It's temporary by nature. Although he did all those things, what good did he do himself? What good did he do to himself in regarding to his soul? Why did he not address the platform or understand the platform of soul? He could not inquire about that. Why? Because he was bewildered. His intelligence was stolen by illusion. Although, he did materially great things, but he forgot the goal of life. It's just like we say that, just like somebody is drowning in the ocean, and you save the clothes and let the person drown. Why? Because you've misidentified with this body. So similarly, those who are worshippers of demigods, they are completely impelled by material desire, and they don't come to the level of understanding the real problem to solve in life. But their faith is particularly given by Krishna in the demigods. Similarly, just like any religion, we have so many faiths. Christian, Hindu, Muslim, such and such. There may be. So that principle of faith in demigods can be applied more or less to any religion. Everybody's, like I was saying, everybody subsists on faith. Even atheism, where does their faith come from in atheism that they have faith that God doesn't exist. Where does that come from? It comes from God. Now, they won't like that. They won't particularly like that we tell them, your faith that you're an atheist comes from God. Because it destroys, it's like, well, that whole definition doesn't make sense because atheism don't believe in God. So they'll say, then which God? Right? Because there's so many gods. Is it the Christian God? Is it the Hindu God? They may say like that. You have so many gods. So which God will you accept? The Christian won't accept a particular God. They'll say, well, the gods of the other religions are the devil. They outrightly say that. So, they may say like that. The atheists think that you have, and they'll say like, which gods? So many gods are there. Which God? And they think by saying that, well, your faith is you kind of destroyed them a little bit. Because God generally means the Supreme Personality. But if you have so many gods, just like in the Greek tradition, you have like Zeus, and you've got, who's this? Jupiter, and all of them. In the past, so many people worship so many gods. Now they forgot about them. So your God is also like that. You have faith in Him now, and in a few years you'll change. That's all. Whatever, God is dead. Or they'll say like that, the Christians in India, they'll go and preach like that your God is dead, our God is alive. So the atheists may argue like that your God, it's just faith, right? Because then after a few years, after a few thousand years, then you'll change your faith. So, that, that the atheists may argue like that. Although that faith in them, that itself, comes from God, that there is no God and such and such. So someone is always worshipping someone in this world. The atheists are also worshipping. They worship their own leader of the atheists. They worship different personalities within this world. That nature of worship cannot be stopped. The nature of worship cannot be stopped because it is the inherent position of the living entity to worship. That is our position. So the Vedic version says, well, a lot of people will say, well, our truth is right and your truth is wrong. Well, the whole idea of truth comes into question. How can truth be wrong? But they'll say, well, your whole understanding is wrong. That only God is, Jesus is the only way and everything else is the devil. But actually the Vedas don't say that. The Vedic version gives a proper understanding of all of these things. It gives us the complete understanding. So the idea that is often cited in the Vedic version is that the truth is one, but it's spoken in various ways. And so often people would take that and run with it and say, now you can speak about truth in any way. So whoever you worship, whatever you worship, it's all the same. The idea of the absolute is also along the lines, the idea of the absolute is one and is spoken, seen, manifest, expressed in various ways. So whatever you may worship is fine. Now the Bhagavad Gita teaches us actually there's a level of truth to that, but it needs to be qualified with proper understanding. Actually, yes, it is true. It is exhibited in various ways. As Krishna says, Yepi anya devata bhaktya yajanti shraddhayan vitaha tepi maam eva kaunteya yajanti avidhi purvakam. Those who are devotees of other gods and who worship them with their faith actually worship only me, O son of Kunti, but they do so in a wrong way. So ultimately, Krishna is the object of worship, and that worship is meant for Him. It's meant for God, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the original personality of Godhead. So it has been done in the wrong way. Just like love is real, but the object of love is wrong in this world right now. So worship is real, but the object of worship is false. Now, even the love that is within this world is coming from the spiritual world, but it is being directed in the wrong way. So just like Krishna says, we're performing it in the wrong way. So if the nature of worship is directed away from Krishna, then it becomes perverted. Although there is a nature of love, it doesn't lose that. Love is not lost at any point, but it's just been done in the wrong way. So anyways, even the love of this material world produces hate. You see, just like people say, well, it's all love. But actually, you love one thing means, if you love on the basis of material existence, you love one thing, you're going to hate something. Just like I love America, but if another country hates America, then we don't like that country. A mother may love its child, as Srila Prabhupada often cites, that is the highest platform of love. But if that love for the child, another child comes and inflicts a pain upon your child, then you hate that other child. Right? Because it's not your child. It's based on a bodily conception of life. So even out of love, whatever love that is, some hate is born. Anyways, side point. But so we will get pleasure from giving pain to others in that way. Also, because your love involves giving some sort of pain to others. Oh, my love is that I'll fight for this person. I see this person as an enemy or a friend. So this propensity to worship, we have this everywhere you see. You can't deny it. The atheist may deny it, but their own life is an example of it, that we can't avoid worship. You worship, that's why now, because atheism is prevailing, or it's prominent, now you have to, who do you worship? Now you worship the music stars. Now you worship the basketball players. Now you worship so many different idols, you could say, material people, that take the position of almost God. But the real worship, mode of worship, is meant for Krishna. Sataya Shraddhaya Yuktas Tasya Radhanam Ihate Labhyate Chatata Kaman Maeva Vihitan Hitan. So endowed with such a faith, he seeks favors of a particular demigod and obtains his desires. But actually, these benefits are bestowed by me alone. So one whose faith or whose worship is directed in a wrong way, he may worship them and they may get the result. But Krishna says, well, actually, I'm giving that result. Ultimately, I'm giving that. Ultimately, actually, everybody's worshipping me, but they're just doing it in a wrong way. So what happens when you're wrong way? Then the result that we desire is not granted also. But if we can recognize who the real object of worship is, who the real person who is granting that benediction is, just like the Prabhupada is saying here, the demigods, not that they're independent. They're not independently giving you a benediction. Actually, they require sanction from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Krishna says such people are less intelligent because they can't realize that there is a source of knowledge which I can just go to, and I will no longer be frustrated with my desires. So, so this worship is going on, and so many religions are there, and so many people, this is the most common questions asked, that why worship God, or why do people worship so many different types of God? Who's right? Why are you right? Everybody claims to be right? My way is the best way. My way is the only way, the truth and the light. You do not worship my way, you are going to hell forever. So often the atheists will say like that, well, all of these gods that you worship are so imperfect. It's like Zeus and Jupiter, they seem to be human. They fight amongst themselves. They fight over women. Why do they do all of these things? They don't seem to be above what the humans' propensities are. It's true that they're equated to the demigods because the demigods are also like that. And also there may be some anthropomorphism, I think. We imagine them to be like us. When we look at God, they think they're like us. So people used to think of God fighting. My God is fighting your God, and one God is going to win. And then they relate with God is in a way of awe and reverence, protecting me. So Christians preach that Jesus is the only way, and the Muslims preach Allah is the only way. And the Krishna consciousness movement, the Hare Krishnas, we preach that surrender to the Krishna is the ultimate goal of life. So who is right? Who is right? Well, Krishna says, well, there's respectively that mode of worship, and according to the mode of worship, there is a level of truth, even, that, okay, according to their faith, they're right. Or according to the level of faith they have. But it's not on the ultimate run. Because Krishna is manifest like that it's not that God doesn't exist in that realm, it's not that they're worshipping the devil, it's a wrong idea. But it's just they're worshipping through their particular mode of nature. So, Christians preach like that. Jesus was so great. Why? Because he made so many miracles happen. Well, back in the day, this particular section of people called the Apollones, I believe, they would say, well, Apollones was one of the people that they worshipped in, I think, the Greeks. And they would say, well, he did so many miracles, so many more miracles than Jesus did, but he never called himself God. They would relate like that to the Christians. So here we see that different modes of worship, different people worshipping different demigods. The question how comes in, then what is this? What is this? What is this religion? If God is one, there cannot be two religions. Or like that, how can you say that which religion is right? Well, Prabhupada gives us an understanding of this. He says that it is not a question of religious process. You must know things as they are. Religion is that, because religion means to know that real law. That is religion. Not religion. Religion does not mean sentiment. Religion means to know the real law. That is religion. If you do not know the definition of religion, that is it. Religion means to know the real law, how the world is going on. What is the law? That is religion. Religion is not sentiment. They have made it a kind of faith. You may have some faith, but the law is different. So faith, a dogmatic faith, is not religion. To know the real law, that is the definition of religion. Vigyate sarvam idam vignatam bhavati. If you know that law, then everything is revealed to you. That is religion. Religion means not to be a blind rascal. Religion means to know everything. That is religion. That is the Vedic injunction. Yasmin vigyate sarvam idam vignatam bhavati. Just like we are teaching with so many philosophers, it does not mean that I am a scientist, philosopher, everything. No, we know one thing, Krishna. Immediately we can catch up what is the defect. So religion specifically means to know the law. Just like you can have faith or you can have belief, but that belief may not equate to fact. You may, like most people, like if you, we have a discussion of reincarnation or karma. Outrightly they'll say, well, reincarnation is not real. But then you present facts, and you present figures, and you present a proper logical idea, then they'll say, well, that's just the devil's work. Or there's a particular passage that they often cite, that in this day and age, those who are devils, worshippers of devils, will convince you that this is not the way by logic and reason. Is that a fallacy? That you can't. So that means don't argue with it. That means anything else without even if they apply logic and reason, we are right. And they are wrong. Why? Because it's the devil's work. Prabhupada said, well, this is a sentiment. This is faith. This is not real religion. So Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, he establishes what is real religion. He establishes on the basis of knowledge, not on the basis of faith. He doesn't expect us, this book doesn't expect us to be faithful. There's level of faith, just like I was discussing in the beginning. It has to be there, but it's on the basis of knowledge. And that knowledge gives us understanding of the material world, the spiritual world, the self, reincarnation, karma, time, all of these things are given. So the demigods, the worship of the demigods who are there as administrators of this universe, that is false worship. It's the wrong mode of worship. Why? Because it doesn't lead to the ultimate goal of life. And that's what we're looking for. It bewilders us. It completely puts us on the wrong wrong platform of life or wrong path of life. Therefore, Krishna doesn't force, and Krishna doesn't force that worship. He says, if you have a desire to worship some demigods, I'll give you faith to do that. If you have a desire to not believe in me, I'll give you faith to do that. I'll give you the false intelligence to do that. So it is independent. It is an independent desire. It is an independent choice whether to love Krishna or to not love Krishna. May not mean you hate him. Exactly, it's not the opposite. But it may be that you're not interested in that ultimate goal of life. It is our own independent choice. Nobody can force you, and you will not go to hell forever for not doing it also. But what will happen is we will continue in this cycle of birth and death, which is painful. Painful, whether we admit it or not, it is painful to go through this process of birth, death, old age, disease, birth, death, old age, disease. We want to start to overcome this samsara, this cycle of birth and death. We want to overcome it. So then we have to study, we have to use proper intelligence. And if we don't have proper intelligence, we find someone who does and take that on. And then you see through their intelligence. So therefore we're being guided here to come to the platform of ultimate worship to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the source of everything. You want something? Why go to the administrator? Go straight to the president. Go straight to the source of everything. You want happiness? Go straight to the source of happiness. This is the wrong verse. Akama sarva kama va moksha kama udardihi tivrena bhakti yogena purusham yajita purusham param. That whether you have all desire, material desire, no desire in life, no problem. You worship Krishna. Everything is satisfied. That does not work with the demigods. And with the demigods, so many conditions are there of worship. Krishna, there is no condition. What does that mean? Patram pushpam phalam toyam yome bhaktya prayaschati. That you simply offer me a leaf, flower, fruit, water. That's all. Do it with bhaktya prayaschati, that with devotion, with love. What is the qualification to worship Krishna? Love, devotion. What is the qualification to worship a demigod? You have to get so many proper ingredients. You have to undergo so many rituals, so many austerities. Krishna means you simply offer fruit, flower, and water to Krishna. And you'll see there's a natural transformation. And Krishna teaches us to follow certain principles of life, of course. No meat eating, no intoxication, no gambling. For the purpose of love, not the purpose of fear. Krishna says that in the Bhagavad Gita. If I can remember the verse. Can't remember the verse. Okay, so he speaks that one should do this bhakti with love, not with fear. That is the qualification to, and when one does it with love, then one avoids naturally this illicit sex and intoxication. All of these, one no longer wants that because we want those things. Again, there's chasing after material desire in order to become happy. But you're already happy. So what is the need of chasing anymore? You don't have to put a poster on your wall. I am happy. I am beautiful. I am, what else people put? I am great. I am strong. So that's the modern thing that you have to put aphorisms. Affirmations. That's when you know society's lost it a little bit. But you don't need that anymore. Why? Because affirmation means you have doubt. But actually when you have complete conviction and understanding and realization of the platform, on the platform of the soul, and your relationship with Krishna, then none of these things that matter anymore. Because you know who you are. You don't have to convince yourself unwillingly, I am happy, yes. I am going to be, that's another one, I'm going to be a millionaire. Right? Write it down on paper and stick it on your fridge, and one day it will happen, right? You will manifest it. So all of this nonsense is going on. Why write $1 million? Why not ask for a spaceship that you can fly around the whole universe in? That's a pretty good idea. Write that down on a paper and see it manifest. Why just a spaceship? Ask for a whole planet that can fly around. If you can manifest $1 million, then manifest also that. So the illusion. But if we can realize this point, how Krishna is the object of our worship, is the perfection of our worship, we can become completely content, completely happy. And we're not saying this on the level of faith, and we're not asking people to just believe this. We're asking people, well, try the process out. You see that the process itself will give us perfection. The process and the goal are the same, actually, in this regard. What we are doing, this chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, is the eternal occupation of the soul. Nobody is giving us an occupation, eternal occupation. Everything you do is temporary. You go to university, you go to university, that's a temporary occupation. You work a job, that's a temporary occupation. All of these things are temporary occupations. But the performance of devotional service is eternal, nitya dharma. It is the eternal nature of the living entity by which you can be satisfied, where you do not have to look anywhere else. Like in the Bhagavad Gita it comes that a whole ocean of water can satisfy what a little pond can. The pond doesn't need to be independent. You don't need to independently look for a pond anymore. You've got a whole ocean. So that is the nature of devotional service. That is the nature of surrendering to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, he encourages the living entity to do that, not for the satisfaction of the individual living entity. And for him, Krishna is satisfied by that. But the living entity becomes completely satisfied, no longer having to look so many other places. We don't have to go into the next bar or the next joint or the next drug and all of these things. So miserable. But you can come to the root of everything at once and live a life that is very blissful. Very blissful. Is a life a little more, you could say, people from externally looking, a little more restraint. But that gives one great level of happiness to live a Krishna conscious life. So then one has to apply these principles in one's life. Only worshipping Krishna, seeing everything properly. Just because other living entities are worshipping other gods doesn't mean that they're going to hell forever. They have their cycles that eventually they'll come up to the platform of devotional service. Their mode of worship is just wrong, as Krishna is saying right now. But we have an opportunity to take to the highest mode of worship, the transcendental mode of worship, in which one can become completely free. So Krishna defines all of these. Actually, later in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna speaks this very prominently called divisions of faith, which is, I think, chapter 17. How all of these different religions even come about. So one can study this Bhagavad Gita, gain some level of understanding of it, practice the principles, chant Hare Krishna, come and associate with the devotees, do all of these things. This is the goal of life. This is where real happiness is. And Krishna previously relating that not many people can understand this. Why? Because everybody is influenced by material desire. Everybody is pulled by material desire. They can't even think about for a second not to go, or the idea that for some time in my life I won't have sex and do drugs and all of this. We have a little new video coming out soon where we went out and interviewed a bunch of people in the Walmart over here. And we're telling how long can you go without sex? He was like, 1 day. I was like, oh my God. Just like people are shocked that we don't even engage in that activity. That, I can't do that, man. There's no way. There's no way. And we thought like that too before in our lives. So there's no way. These people are just like pretending. But then you practice chanting Hare Krishna and you realize you start losing the desire for these material things. These things start going away. The desire to keep getting more and more in our life, it goes away and you start becoming actually contempt without artificially doing it. You become pleased, you become happy by just the platform of chanting Hare Krishna, because that's the ultimate position that we belong in. We no longer actually even ask Krishna for anything because he's providing anyways. The master provides to the servant perfectly. Why do we need to ask? Why do you need to ask for daily bread or your car or all of these things? All these living entities are living. You don't see, they're all God's children. They don't have to go out and work a job and do all this. They don't go and pray for that. The squirrels, they're getting their food. They have their home. The birds are creating their nests. The elephants need so much to eat, and that is being provided. So Krishna provides everything. He is the owner of everything. So when one starts to come to this platform of love with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then he himself feels that, oh, I have everything that I need. Nothing else is required. This is the object of my life. This is the goal of my life. So satisfaction is there at every step. Every activity within Krishna consciousness, done in that proper state of consciousness, of course, Krishna conscious, is completely satisfying. You could never think that cleaning some floors or even cleaning a bathroom could be very satisfying every day. Or, whatever, doing so many different activities, not just that, we clean bathrooms all day also, but even doing that is satisfying. What may be considered in the material world to be very low can be the highest thing in our lives, if we can realize it. If we can realize it in relationship with Krishna, taking prasadam, the food that is cooked, how it purifies our consciousness, how it nourishes us spiritually, materially, everything. By singing the kirtan, the music, it doesn't invoke more material desire. It doesn't make us. It invokes the spiritual desire. It invokes complete satisfaction. It's like Srila Prabhupada says, we want an ocean of happiness, but we're hankering for one drop. But when we're chanting the holy names of the Lord with proper consciousness, when we're chanting and dancing and singing and taking prasadam and performing devotional service, we are drinking an ocean of nectar. We're swimming in an ocean of nectar. And so one of our great teachers, he says, when I perform devotional service and when I chant the holy names of the Lord, I desire thousands of tongues. I desire thousands of ears. Why? Because it's just so good. And it's not like you go out to a restaurant and you get the cheesecake or whatever cake that you like the best, and you eat one of those, and then you eat a second one, and then a third one, and then you throw up. That's material life. But spiritual life is that it never ends. The taste that grows, ever-growing bliss, ananda chinmaya rasa, never ending, never ending. That's what we want, right, in our lives. You want to be able to approach a demigod or another type of God. Krishna provides everything. And so one can become completely satisfied. One can become completely dependent on Krishna. Independently dependent. So Krishna gives the faith if one's desires, according to one's desires. So if we make our desire to know Krishna, to love Krishna, then He also gives us that steady faith. He gives us that. That was mentioned. That achalam, steady, unshakable. Krishna gives us that faith with proper desire. When we redirect our desires from material desires to spiritual desires, then we get that complete conviction. So I'll end the class there. If there's any questions or comments, please feel free to ask. Anything at all? You have something? Nothing? No? Iman Mataji?
Can you, Hare Krishna? Can you just rephrase what Srila Prabhupada said about like religion?
Yeah, so that it means to know law. Basically, more or less, he's just saying that it shouldn't just be faith. I believe because I believe. It should be based on knowledge. It's not that, well, why does a God exist? Because this God is, well, why do you do this? Because I just believe it. Just like that's like a challenge that we always have. It's like, Jesus says He's the only way. So Krishna says that He's the only way. So what is your point? It's like, our book is right, your book is wrong. Why? Because we're just right, because we're right. Is this level of faith? There's no knowledge. There's no logical presentation of how, why. Therefore, so many people have lost faith in the church. Because young people naturally question so many things, and as the world grows, so much information is there. So Prabhupada is making the point that one should be able to establish knowledge independent of all of these knowledge, all these extra things that we know in this world now. Like just like here being said, it doesn't mean that I'm a scientist, philosopher, everything. But we know one thing, Krishna, so immediately we can catch what is the defect. So because we know Krishna, who is the source of our knowledge, even their knowledge that they're having is coming from him, we can catch what is the problem in their philosophy. We're not philosophers. But because we know Krishna consciousness, we've studied what Krishna is teaching, which is perfect by nature, and their knowledge is imperfect, we can catch them. Srila Prabhupada. We can catch their problem in their philosophy. And just like the scientists now, they've advanced so much. But what do we catch them on? Well, life comes from life. That's it. They've lost everything. They can't argue on that basis. So we're not scientists or philosophers, but because we know what we've deeply understood on the platform of knowledge, we can find defects easily in others' philosophies. We can point out defects. Well, you're saying this, but this is the underlying issue that breaks everything that you're saying. So then how is this supreme knowledge? And then we encourage people, you do that to us, go ahead. You can do that. We're not just saying don't ask questions and don't question our faith. You say, come, go ahead. No problem. We have no problem. You can study the books and then come and ask many questions as you like. No problem. And you can challenge us. Go ahead. But we, specifically studying this knowledge, we're able to point out all of these defects and establish Krishna consciousness as a fact. So that is the that is the proper platform of knowing Krishna. He starts to know everything. Prabhupada says it like that. I'm the greatest scientist. Why? Because I know the greatest scientist. Because I take knowledge from the perfect scientist, Krishna. So like that. We're the greatest philosophers. Why? Because Krishna is the greatest philosopher. And we just take his knowledge and we present it as it is. So all of these things are there. Like that. Anything else? Okay. You have something? No? Okay. No? Okay. Alright. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Now there will be prasadam served out downstairs, so you can make your way down there. Please do not wait.